what happens when you apply for asylum with USCIS. In this video, I'm going to tell you what you can expect if you want to seek asylum affirmatively. I'm discussing cases where the applicant is not in deportation proceedings. If you've received a document called a notice to appear telling you that the government is trying to deport you and you need to go to immigration court, then the process will be different than what I'm describing in this video. In this video, I'm providing an overview of the process for people who either came to the United States with a visa or who crossed the border without coming into contact with immigration authorities. Now, under these circumstances, you'll be submitting an affirmative asylum application with USCIS rather than in immigration court. Stick with me to the end of this video because I'm going to tell you where things stand at present regarding timelines for asylum cases. You need to see this. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now as an asylum lawyer, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. All right, there are 5 steps in the asylum process. Let's get started. Step 1, submitting the asylum application to USCIS. You should apply for asylum online rather than by mail with actual paper. Applying online moves the process along much faster, and it's much easier to manage your case than when you apply by mail. To apply online, you'll need to first create a My USCIS account. This is easy, it takes just a couple of minutes. Then you'll initiate an application through your account, filling out the asylum application form online. The form is called Form I-589, Application for Asylum and Withholding of Removal. Now, it's a fairly detailed form. In addition to asking you why you fear being harmed in your country, it requires you to provide a ton of personal information. It's actually pretty annoying. You have to list information for every educational institution that you've ever attended in your entire life. And you've got to provide details for every job you've had and each address that you've lived at for the last 5 years. You also have to upload into the system certain required documents like proof of identity and proof of a qualifying relationship to any family members whom you're including as part of your asylum case. You can upload evidence and country conditions information at this time if you like, or you can come back and do this later after your application has been submitted. You just need to follow the prompts in the My USCIS software until you're able to submit the application. Then, usually within a day or two, you'll get a notification that your application has been accepted and is pending with the government. Now, this letter, which you will find in your USCIS account, is called a receipt notice. Okay, we're ready for step 2 in the USCIS asylum process, biometrics. Usually within a few weeks of submitting an asylum application online, you receive a letter saying that you need to go to a USCIS office called an Application Support Center for a biometrics appointment. There, they'll take your photograph and fingerprints, which they use for background checks. This appointment is easy, nothing to worry about, and there's nothing that you need to do to prepare. Don't worry, they will not ask you questions about your asylum case at this appointment. And that takes us to step 3, applying for a work permit based on your pending asylum claim. Note that you may become eligible for this before your asylum interview, or it could be afterwards if you get lucky and have your interview scheduled soon after applying. You are eligible to apply for a work permit, formerly called an Employment Authorization Document, or EAD, 150 days after the government has accepted your asylum application. So remember that receipt notice letter that we said you'd receive after applying for asylum? Well, that letter will say that your application is pending as of X date. So take that date, X date, and count forward 150 days to find the date on which you're eligible to apply for a work permit. You can apply for this online through your My USCIS account just like you did to submit your asylum application. There's no fee to apply for a work permit based on an asylum case, or at least not the first time that you apply. USCIS is supposed to adjudicate this application in 30 days, and they usually do, or maybe a little bit longer. So you should receive your work permit card in the mail within a couple of months of applying for it. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. Okay, the 4th phase is the interview. You will at some point receive a letter telling you to go to an asylum office for your interview. And you usually get this letter not more than 2 weeks before the interview date, so it's crucial to have everything in order. You should submit everything you want to submit ahead of time. At your interview, you'll sit in the office of an asylum officer, which is what I used to be, who will ask you tons of questions about what's happened and why you fear going back to your country. Now, this may sound easy, but it's not. You see, the officer doesn't just let you explain yourself and tell your story. Rather, they ask you question after question after question. They're constantly interrupting you. They're changing topics frequently. And the truth is that some of them are anti-immigrant, and they're actively searching for an excuse to deny you. Some of them play word games with you and try to trip you up so they'll have an excuse to reject your claim. It's hard. You need to practice and be well prepared. An asylum interview normally lasts about 2 to 4 hours. By the way, I'll leave a link in the description to a very detailed training explaining exactly what happens at a USCIS asylum interview. Now, you will not learn your fate on this day. Rather, you're going to have to wait. And that takes us to the 5th and final step in your affirmative asylum case, the decision. At your interview, the officer will tell you whether you need to return to the asylum office to pick up your decision letter in person, or whether they will instead mail it to you. This is usually a function of how far you live from the asylum office, but sometimes even people who live close are told that they will receive their decision in the mail. Your decision letter will tell you whether you've been granted asylum. Now, if it's a positive decision, it'll tell you the date on which your asylee status is effective, and the packet will contain a little card called an I-94, which shows that you've been granted asylum. And remember, an asylee can get permanent residence, also known as a green card, 1 year after having been granted asylum. And then 4 years after getting permanent residency, you're eligible to apply for US citizenship. Now, if the asylum officer makes a negative decision, what happens next depends on your immigration status at the moment that negative decision is made. Most people do not have legal immigration status at that time, and so they receive what's called a referral notice. This is a letter that explains only very superficially why you're not eligible for asylum, and it tells you that your case is being sent to immigration court. Unfortunately, this means that the government is now trying to deport you, and you've got to show up in immigration court to defend yourself. In immigration court, you'll get another chance to explain your case, and the judge will decide whether you should get asylum or instead an order of deportation. So those are the 5 steps in an affirmative asylum case, starting with the application and ending with your decision from USCIS. But what's the timeline? How long can you expect your asylum case to take? Unfortunately, there's no way to predict this with any real confidence. In recent years, there have been times when things have moved along quickly. For a while, many asylum seekers who applied online were getting an interview within 2 or 3 months of applying, with many of those people getting their decision within a few weeks of their interview. But at the time that I'm making this video in May 2023, things have slowed down. USCIS has had to prioritize the cases of Afghans brought to the United States when the Taliban took back over Afghanistan, and many asylum officers have been pulled off of asylum interviews to instead do credible fear interviews as the number of people seeking protection at the border has increased. So this shift in priorities has slowed down the process for most asylum seekers. Now, I do still think there's a chance that someone applying now could get their interview soon, but I'd say that a wait of at least several months is more likely. And yes, it could be longer, possibly much longer than that. With USCIS, you really never know. So you should go into your case prepared psychologically for the fact that it could take a long time, possibly even years, to get a decision. Now, that's disheartening, I know, but stick with it. I promise you it will be worth it when you are granted asylum and you know that you're safe and that you can build your life in America with confidence around your future. And if you're ready to take the next step and get individualized help with your asylum case, call my office today, okay? That number is 713-352-1593. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you are. So call us today, call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.